You're listening to I Love This TV Show, The Golden Girls.
The Golden Girls, Season 3, Episode 11, Three on a Couch. Original air date, December 5th, 1987. In this episode, the four ladies go to a counselor. They get in a fight in the waiting room about whose name the appointment should be under. The doctor comes out to break up the fight. Each lady introduces themselves to him as they enter. He asks them to each tell him a little about themselves. Blanche gives a list of lies. He asks what they dislike about each other. Dorothy says that Blanche is selfish. The doctor asks Dorothy to give an example of Blanche's selfishness. She tells a story about when she was sick. Blanche had them set up for a double date, and she refused to let Dorothy just be sick and bow out. Blanche refuses to cancel the double date. She then gives her a rousing speech that causes Sophia to compare her with Tammy Baker. Dorothy continues to refuse to go on the date, and Blanche continues to push. Sophia gives Dorothy a fourth hot toddy. They've each had a different alcohol in them. Dorothy passes out from the fourth one. Blanche just props her up on the couch to partially participate in the double date. Back in the office, Rose is upset that she's always being told to shut up. He asks for an example of Rose's behavior that upsets them. Sophia tells a story about when Rose put Dorothy's want ad in the paper. Only it wound up in the personals, not the job-seeking section. The doorbell rings, and it's a man who asks Dorothy about her ad in the paper. He wants her to be Dorothy, and he is Toto. Rose finds her ad in the personals column. A priest also comes to the door, and Dorothy thinks that he's responding to her ad. He's actually collecting a food donation from Sophia, though. Before she can close the door, another man rushes in. Blanche also comes in and informs them about a busload of Greek sailors outside. Rose apologizes. Blanche then goes on the attack against Rose. She starts defending herself, and Scandinavian words start flying. Chaos ensues. The doctor is forced to yell to get them to focus again. Now he asks about Dorothy. They give an example of when Dorothy was studying, but both Rose and Blanche interrupted her. Sophia follows them in. The two are scared of the aliens. Dorothy defends the new neighbors, but Rose said they watched the movie Aliens, and it scared them half to death. Sophia finally gets everyone to exit so Dorothy can study. In this case, the doctor sides with Dorothy. Blanche then complains that it's not easy living with someone who's so together. Dorothy tells them that if she didn't take charge when needed, the house would fall apart. Sophia jumps in that she has to straighten everything out. She tells a story about when Rose came to her when her boss made a pass at her. But then Blanche comes in with a man problem too. She tells them both a story. Dorothy comes in with a problem as well. She starts the story again and is able to tell the whole story. Rose learned that she should stand up to her boss. Blanche learned that there are plenty of fish in the sea and to move on. And Dorothy said it helped her pick out dinner. Rose asks what they should do. He tells them that they are incompatible. He's shocked they haven't killed each other already. He tells them to move. That night they sit around the table in the kitchen to discuss packing and moving. Sophia comes in. She doesn't help, but she does tell them a story. The story is about them and eating. She tells them that just because it's tough, you don't give up. You keep going and trying. Favorite quotes. Sophia. My name is Sophia Petrillo, and my idea of a good psychiatrist is a bartender who pours without a spout. Sophia. You know what I can't stand anymore? Your phony accent. What is this, designing women? Blanche. Go on without you. Dorothy, this isn't a wagon train. It's a double date. Sophia. Hey, just because you put your makeup on with a butter knife doesn't make you Tammy Baker. Dorothy. Forget it, Blanche. I'm not going to kill myself because you have the hots for some guy in a fancy car. Dorothy. You put an ad in the personals column that says, I will do anything for $8 an hour? Sophia, that's my Dorothy, always with her nose in a book. Dorothy, since when is competence a crime? Blanche, I'm surprised she doesn't check our underwear before we leave the house. Dorothy, those of you who wear underwear. Sophia, I knew you were a quack. If you were a legitimate shrink, you'd have strung us along for months. The girls are at the end of their rope with each other in this episode. Rose and Dorothy and Blanche are all within about the same age range, and they function like sisters in this house, and Sophia like the mom. And in all families, there are periods of time where people don't get along and they fight. Clearly there's jealousy about issues, and then there's also, everyone has their strengths, everyone has their weaknesses. When we look at Blanche, Blanche is really all about men. And I think the other girls tend to get jealous of how many dates she goes on and how many guys she goes out with. With Dorothy, she's very, very put together. She's very competent. She's very organized. She's very on top of things. And the other three are definitely not in the same level as her on that. And so I think that causes jealousies and frustrations and tensions, because she can pretty much always solve a problem with higher level thinking, because she is a bit better off, like, education wise and probably even IQ wise than the rest of the ladies on the episode. Rose is kind. It's kind of hard to describe Rose. I love her as a character, but she's definitely not the smartest person, and she's not going to solve your problem. She has all of these fun Scandinavian words, and she uses them a lot. They come out as like a curse word, and the girls get really upset at that, especially when she randomly defines a word. Like, what is it in this episode? It's like Graflana, the point when dog do turns white. I mean, who's gonna come up with that? And what language really has such a precise singular word for that? So, I mean, I find that entertaining, but I do understand how the girls would get frustrated with that, because how can one word be used to describe something that in, like, English and in most languages takes a whole sentence or two to describe? And then we get to Sophia, and Sophia is older and wiser in life, but she's also had that stroke, so her edit button, well, is broken, and she pretty much says what she says. Now, over the course of the series, her edit button does seem to get a few repairs, and she doesn't say as many outlandish things to people's faces. She waits to say it behind their back or after they leave, but still, and her, pictured Sicily stories, those are always good stories too. And people don't get upset at her pictured Sicily stories. Well, they do get upset at Rose's back in St. Olaf stories. And I think it might be a combination of the delivery of those stories, as well as the content of those stories. How you present a story really does decide how people perceive it and accept it. But yes, in this episode, we just learn a lot of things that are bugging the ladies about each other. And Sophia winds up kind of fixing everything towards the end, but still, they should set up a time, like maybe like a weekly time, a monthly time, but some kind of a scheduled meeting, not just around a table with cheesecake, but where they can air grievances and things that have upset them, so they can discuss it in an adult way. And maybe that happens in an off-screen manner, but it's just never discussed. But ultimately, it would improve their relationship considerably if at least once or twice a month they discuss things that are bothering them. And, come up with ways to work through them and be calm and not lose their temper. Thanks for tuning in to the I Love This TV Show podcast. If you would like to make a donation in support of this podcast, you can through Cash App to Pasta26MC. That's pasta, like the food, the number 2, the number 6, M as in monkey, C as in cat. If you would like to sponsor this podcast or advertise on it, please send an email to podcast@pastasworld.com. As always, you can go to pastasworld.com for more information.